A man who died after being hit by a car on the M62 made a final phone call to his wife before walking into oncoming traffic. Stephen Mason, 49, had tried to kill himself by crashing his car into a HGV while on the phone to his wife. Mr. Mason survived that initial crash, which happened close to junction 37 of the motorway, near Howden, on April 24 last year. He then got out of his vehicle and walked onto the westbound carriageway where he was hit by an oncoming car. He died at the scene. Moments before intentionally crashing his vehicle, Mr. Mason, a factory operator, had been on the phone to his wife of 15 years after driving away from the family home in Osgodby, near Selby. Mr. Mason told his wife, "Put the phone down, you won't like what you hear, emergency services are on the scene." Image, Sean Stewart. His wife remained on the line and heard the impact of the crash before the phone went dead. An inquest into Mr. Mason's death heard his Ford Kuga hit the lorry and careered off the road into an embankment. Man, 20, who died after a 63 lorry tragedy named as inquest opens. Having survived the crash, Mr. Mason got out of the vehicle and walked across the carriageway, when he was hit by a Mazda. The driver of the car told police he did not see Mr. Mason as he had been changing lanes. He heard an almighty bang, and his windscreen shattered before he saw Mr. Mason lying in the road. An air ambulance was called, but Mr. Mason was tragically pronounced dead at the scene. The road remained closed for 8 hours. In the weeks before his death, Mr. Mason was on bail after being arrested by police. He had not been charged with any offenses. He had visited his doctor and told him he was under stress and had considered taking his own life. Victim of sneaky thief lurking in Hull. McDonald's has this warning, but at an appointment on April 13, he was deemed not to be a threat to himself as he had returned to work and was staying alive for his son and his wife. During the inquest, his wife said, "Steve's priority was his son. He did everything for him and instilled great qualities in him and did everything he could for his family." Housebridge. Image, Sean Stewart. Recording a conclusion of suicide, senior coroner Professor Paul Mark said, "This is a sad and most unfortunate case. In this case, the deceased, Stephen Peter Mason, born in Sunderland, sadly died after being hit by a car at junction 37 of the M62 westbound. Tragedy as loving father dies in horror crash with tractor. He suffered multiple traumatic injuries due to the road traffic accident, and neither drugs or alcohol played a part in his death." He went on to say that Mr. Mason contacted his GP, expressed thoughts of suicide, was prescribed antidepressants for his depression and given details of the mental health crisis team. Image, Sean Stewart. The coroner went on to say, "On April 24, Stephen deliberately collided with a HGV on the eastbound side of the M62 and his car came to a rest on the near side of a drain ditch. He then got out of his vehicle and crossed over the motorway to the central reservation to the westbound carriageway, his face expressionless and without looking at the oncoming traffic. He was then hit by a car. At the point that he entered the carriageway, collision with a car was inevitable, and was more likely that Mr. Mason would see oncoming vehicles than they would see him, and no charges were brought against the driver who hit him." Police released statement after 3 vehicles crash on A164. The balance of Steve's mind had been altered by the police investigation after his arrest, and he was thinking of the worst-case scenario. There is no doubt that it was his intention to take his own life, and it is clear that it was successful. Stephen Peter Mason committed suicide whilst the balance of his mind was affected. Follow Hull Live, our daily newsletter, to get the latest headlines direct to your email inbox every day. Click here. Follow Hull Live on Facebook, like our Facebook page to get the latest news in your feed and join in the lively discussions in the comments. Click here to give it a like. Follow us on Twitter for breaking news and the latest stories. Click here to follow Hull Live on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. On the Hull Live Instagram page, we share gorgeous pictures of our stunning city, and if you tag us in your posts, we could repost your picture on our page. We also put the latest news in our Instagram stories. Click here to follow Hell Live on Instagram.